The gunshot that shattered the window of the general store in Petaluma, California, wasn't meant for Hannah Bishop, but the blood on her hands told a different story to anyone who would listen. She ran through the dusty streets in the fading light of that August evening in 1878. Her skirts tangled around her legs as she stumbled past the saloon where men were already gathering to hear about the shooting. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. The marshal would be looking for her soon. Everyone had seen her standing over the body. Everyone had seen the gun near her feet, and no one would believe that she had just found him that way. Thomas Kern had been her employer, the man who owned the boarding house where she worked as a cook and housekeeper. He had also been a cruel man who took liberties with the women who worked for him, who thought his money gave him the right to do whatever he pleased. But Hannah had never wanted him dead, no matter how many times she had pushed away his wandering hands or endured his whispered threats about throwing her out if she did not cooperate with his advances. Now he was dead in his office, and she had made the mistake of running when she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Running made her look guilty. Running meant they would hang her without asking questions. The California air was still warm as she made her way toward the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to open land, and the roads became nothing more than wagon tracks through the grass. She had no horse, no supplies, nothing but the clothes on her back and the few dollars tucked into her boot. Her dark hair had come loose from its pins and whipped around her face as she ran, and she could taste dust and fear on her tongue. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she had to get away from Petaluma before they organized a posse. She had seen hangings before. She had seen how quickly a crowd could turn into a mob, how fast justice could become vengeance. No one would care that she was innocent. No one would care that Thomas Kern had been found with his safe open and his money gone, that someone else had clearly robbed and killed him. All they would see was the woman who had rejected his advances, the woman who had been heard arguing with him just that morning. The sun was setting behind the coastal hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded her too much of fire and blood. She kept running until her lungs burned and her legs threatened to give out beneath her. Finally, she stumbled off the main road and into a grove of oak trees, collapsing against one of the thick trunks and trying to catch her breath. She could hear riders in the distance. They were coming already. Hannah pressed her hand against her mouth to muffle her breathing and tried to think. She needed a horse. She needed to get further away, to find somewhere they would not think to look. But she was alone and afraid, and had never been more than 20 miles from Petaluma in her entire 22 years of life. The sound of a single horse approaching made her freeze. This was not the thunder of multiple riders, not the posse she had been dreading. This was someone else, someone riding slowly as if they had all the time in the world. She pressed herself against the tree and prayed they would pass by without seeing her. "You can come out," a male voice called. It was deep and calm, with a slight drawl that spoke of time spent in Texas or maybe Arizona. "I am not here to hurt you." Hannah did not move. "It could be a trick." "I saw you leave town," the voice continued. "Saw the whole thing, actually. You did not shoot Thomas Kern." Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, carefully, she peered around the tree trunk. The man sitting on the horse was silhouetted against the dying light, but she could make out a tall figure in a worn cowboy hat and duster coat. He sat easy in the saddle, one hand resting on his thigh, the other holding the reins loosely. His horse was a sturdy bay gelding that looked like it could run for days without tiring. "Who are you?" Hannah asked, her voice hoarse from running and fear. "Name is Nathan Harper," he said. He tilted his hat back, and she could see more of his face now. He was young, maybe 25 or 26, with sun-weathered skin and dark eyes that seemed to take in everything without judgment. "I work at the lumber mill outside of town. I was making a delivery to the general store when I saw someone running from the boarding house. Saw them get on a horse and ride north. It was not you." Hope flared in Hannah's chest, painful and desperate. "You saw who really did it." Did not get a good look at the face, but it was a man, shorter than me, wearing a black hat and riding a paint horse. He was carrying saddlebags that looked heavy. "I went into the boarding house after he left, found Kern dead. Then I heard you scream from upstairs, heard you running. By the time I got there, you were already gone and people were starting to gather. Why did you not tell them?" She stepped out from behind the tree, though she kept her distance. She had learned not to trust men too easily. Nathan shifted in his saddle. "I tried. Started to tell the marshal, but then I heard what people were saying about you. Heard them talking about how you had been fighting with Kern, how you had rejected him. Realized they had already made up their minds." He paused, his jaw tightening. "I have seen innocent people hang before because it was easier than finding the real killer. I did not want to see it happen again. So you followed me." "So I followed you," he agreed. "Figured you could use some help." Hannah wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she could not afford. "What do you want in return?" Something flickered across his face, an emotion she could not quite read in the fading light. "Nothing. I just want to help you get somewhere safe. No one does something for nothing." "Then maybe I am no one," he said quietly. He dismounted, moving slowly and keeping his hands visible. Up close, she could see he was taller than she had thought, with broad shoulders and the lean build of a man who worked hard for his living. His face was honest, she thought, with a straight nose and a mouth that looked like it smiled often, though it was serious now. "Listen, miss, I do not have time to convince you to trust me. That posse is going to be here soon and they are going to have dogs. You need to be gone before they arrive." As if to punctuate his words, the sound of barking drifted through the evening air. Hannah felt her stomach drop. "I do not have a horse." "You do now." Nathan gestured to his bay. "Ranger here can carry both of us for a while, at least until we put some distance between us and them. I know a place we can go, somewhere they will not think to look." "Why should I believe you?" He met her eyes, and she saw nothing but sincerity in his gaze. "Because I am asking you to, and because you do not have any other choice right now. I am offering to help you, Hannah Bishop. I am offering to stand between you and them for as long as you need me to." The sound of her name on his lips startled her. The sound of the posse was getting closer. She could hear men shouting now, organizing themselves. She made her decision. "All right," she said, moving toward the horse. "All right, I will come with you." Nathan helped her up into the saddle, his hands strong and steady, then swung up behind her. His arms came around her to take the reins, and she tried not to think about how long it had been since she had felt safe with a man this close to her. "Hold on," he said, and then they were moving. Ranger carried them away from the oak grove and away from the approaching posse, his hooves steady on the darkening ground. Nathan guided them off the main paths and into rougher country, heading east toward the hills. Hannah clung to the saddle horn and tried not to think about what would happen if they were caught. They rode for what felt like hours, though it was probably less than one. The moon rose, a thin crescent that gave little light. Nathan seemed to know where he was going even in the darkness, guiding Ranger around obstacles and through narrow passes that Hannah would never have seen on her own. Finally, when she thought she could not hold on any longer, he slowed the horse to a walk and then to a stop. "There," he said, pointing ahead. She could barely make out the shape of a small cabin nestled against the hillside, hidden among the trees and rocks. It looked old and abandoned, the kind of place that people forgot about. "What is this place?" she asked. Old line shack from when this area was still open range, Nathan said, dismounting and then helping her down. Her legs nearly gave out when her feet hit the ground, and he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. Has not been used in years. No one will think to look here. He led Ranger toward the cabin, and Hannah followed, too tired to do anything else. The door hung crooked on its hinges, but it opened with a push. Inside, the cabin was small and dusty, but it was dry and out of the wind. There was an old iron stove in one corner, a wooden table with 2 chairs, and a rope bed frame against the wall. Nathan tied Ranger outside where the horse could graze on the sparse grass, then came back inside with his saddlebags. He rummaged through them and pulled out some dried meat, hardtack, and a canteen of water. "It is not much," he said, offering them to her, "but it is something." Hannah took the canteen and drank deeply, not realizing how thirsty she was until the water hit her throat. She ate some of the meat and hardtack, forcing herself to chew and swallow even though her stomach was churning with anxiety. Nathan did not eat. Instead, he stood by the window, looking out into the darkness. "They will search for a few hours," he said, "but they will not want to be out all night. Come morning they will start again, but they will be looking north toward Sacramento. That is where most people run when they leave Petaluma." "How long do I have?" Hannah asked. "Few days, maybe a week before they figure out you went a different direction. We can use that time to plan." "Plan what?" He turned to look at her. "How to prove you are innocent, or, if we cannot do that, how to get you far enough away that you can start over somewhere they will never find you." Hannah felt tears prick her eyes, the first she had let herself feel since this nightmare began. "Why are you doing this? You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My sister was accused of something she did not do back when I lived in Texas. She was young, barely 18, and the rancher's son took a liking to her. When she refused him, he claimed she had stolen from him. They arrested her, and before we could prove she was innocent, she took sick in that jail cell. She died 3 days before the judge came to town." "I am sorry," Hannah whispered. "I am sorry too," Nathan said. "I am sorry I could not help her. I am sorry I was too young and too powerless to stand up for her the way she needed. But I am not that boy anymore. I can help you, and I am going to." The conviction in his voice made something crack inside Hannah's chest. She put her face in her hands and let herself cry, great shaking sobs that she had been holding back since the moment she found Thomas Kern's body. She cried for the life she had just lost, for the fear that gripped her, for the loneliness of being alone in the world with no one to turn to. She did not hear Nathan move, but suddenly he was kneeling beside her, his hand hovering near her shoulder as if he wanted to comfort her but was not sure if he should. "It is going to be all right," he said quietly. "I promise you, Hannah, I will not let them hang you for something you did not do." She looked up at him through her tears, at this stranger who had appeared out of nowhere to save her. His face was kind in the moonlight filtering through the dirty window, and his eyes were steady and sure. "I will stand between you and them," he said. "Always." Hannah did not know why she believed him, but she did. They spent that night in the cabin, Nathan insisting that she take the rope bed while he made himself as comfortable as possible on the floor with his saddle blanket. Hannah did not think she would be able to sleep, but exhaustion claimed her almost as soon as she lay down. She woke to the smell of coffee brewing on the old stove. Pale morning light filtered through the windows, and she could hear birds singing outside. For a moment, she forgot where she was and why. Then it all came rushing back. Nathan was crouched by the stove, coaxing the fire to heat the battered pot he must have found in his saddlebags. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes that suggested he had not slept much. "Morning," he said when he noticed she was awake, Coffee will be ready in a minute. Hannah sat up, pushing her tangled hair out of her face. Did you sleep at all? Enough. He poured coffee into a tin cup and brought it to her. How are you feeling? Like I am living a nightmare. That is fair. He sat down on one of the wooden chairs which creaked under his weight. I have been thinking about our options. And the way I see it, we have two choices. We can run, get you as far from California as possible, Arizona, maybe, or New Mexico. Somewhere you can disappear and start fresh. Or we can try to find the man who really killed Thomas Kern and prove your innocence. Hannah sipped the coffee, which was strong and bitter but welcome. If we run, I will be running forever. Always looking over my shoulder, always afraid someone will recognize me. That is true. But if we try to prove I am innocent, we might fail, and then they will hang me. Also true. She looked at him over the rim of her cup. What do you think we should do? Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. I think you should do whatever feels right to you. This is your life, Hannah, your choice. I will help you either way. She thought about it, really thought about it. Running meant safety, but it also meant never being able to come back, never being able to clear her name. She would be a fugitive forever, always hiding, always alone. I want to prove I am innocent, she said finally. I want my life back. Nathan nodded as if he had expected that answer. Then that is what we will do. How? Well, first we need to figure out who really killed Kern. I told you I saw a man leaving on a paint horse. That is somewhere to start. Not many people in Petaluma have a paint horse. Hannah thought back to everything she knew about Thomas Kern, which was more than she wanted to. He had debts. I heard him arguing with people about money he owed, and he gambled, lost more than he won most of the time. So someone he owed money to could have killed him. Or someone he won money from. She frowned. His safe was open. That means whoever killed him knew the combination or forced him to open it before they shot him. Which suggests it was not a random robbery. It was someone who knew he had money in that safe. They looked at each other, the pieces starting to come together. We need to get back to Petaluma, Nathan said. We need to ask questions, figure out who had a reason to want Kern dead. I cannot go back there, Hannah said, her heart racing at the thought. They will arrest me the moment they see me. You cannot go back openly, Nathan agreed. But I can ask questions, see what I can find out. You will need to stay hidden. Where? He thought about it. I have a place, a small ranch about 10 miles from town. It is not much, just a cabin and a barn and some land I am trying to build up. But it is mine, and no one will think to look for you there. You would risk hiding me. If they find out, they could arrest you too. Nathan stood up, moving to look out the window at the brightening day. I told you I would help you, and I meant it. I am not afraid of the consequences. There was something in his voice, a determination that made Hannah's chest tighten. This man, this stranger, was willing to risk everything for her. She did not understand it, but she was grateful for it in a way she could not put into words. Thank you, she said quietly. I do not know how I will ever repay you. He turned to look at her, and there was something soft in his expression. You do not need to repay me, just let me help you. That is enough. They left the cabin later that morning after Nathan had made sure there were no signs of pursuit. The ride to his ranch took most of the day, traveling slowly and carefully to avoid being seen. Nathan kept them off the main roads, following trails and paths that only someone who knew this land well would know. Hannah found herself studying him as they rode, the way he sat easy in the saddle, the way his eyes constantly scanned their surroundings. He was competent, she realized, the kind of man who knew how to take care of himself and others. It had been a long time since she had known anyone like that. Tell me about your ranch, she said, partly to distract herself from her fear and partly because she wanted to know more about him. Not much to tell, Nathan said. I bought the land 2 years ago with money I saved from working at the mill. Built the cabin myself, one log at a time. Got a few cattle, some chickens. I am trying to build it into something real, something that is mine. Do you live alone? Mostly. Sometimes I get drifters passing through who need a place to stay for a night or two. I do not mind the company when it comes, but I do not mind the solitude either. That sounds lonely, he shrugged. Lonely is not always bad. It is peaceful, quiet. After everything that happened with my sister, I needed quiet. Hannah understood that. She had spent the last 3 years working at the boarding house, surrounded by people all the time, never alone. But she had been lonely anyway, because none of those people really knew her or cared about her. Maybe being physically alone was not the same as being lonely. The ranch, when they finally reached it, was exactly as Nathan had described. A small cabin made of rough-hewn logs, a barn that looked sturdy enough, a corral with a few cattle grazing nearby. There were chickens scratching in the dirt near the cabin, and a vegetable garden that looked like it had been recently tended. It was simple and isolated and perfect. Nathan helped her down from the horse and led her inside the cabin. It was one room, neat and spare, with a bed in one corner, a table and chairs, a stove and shelves lined with canned goods and supplies. Everything a man needed to live, nothing extra. "You can stay here," he said. "I will sleep in the barn so people do not get the wrong idea if anyone comes by." "You do not have to do that." "Yes, I do. You are already risking enough without adding scandal to it." He had a point. A single woman staying alone with a single man would cause talk even out here. "I will ride into town tomorrow," Nathan continued. "Start asking questions. You stay here, stay out of sight. There is food in the pantry, water from the well out back. If anyone comes, you hide. Understand?" Hannah nodded. "I understand." "Good." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Hannah, I want you to know something. I am going to do everything I can to clear your name. But if it comes down to it, if things go wrong, I will get you out of California. You are not going to hang for this. I promise you that." Before she could respond, he was gone, heading out to tend to Ranger and settle the horse for the night. Hannah sank into one of the chairs and let out a long breath. She was safe for now. She was hidden for now. And she had someone on her side, which was more than she had had 24 hours ago. But she was also a fugitive, accused of murder, and her entire life hung in the balance. She got up and moved to the window, looking out at the land around Nathan's ranch. The sun was setting again, painting everything in gold and shadow. It was beautiful out here, she thought. Peaceful, like he had said. She wondered what it would be like to live here, to wake up every morning to this view, to work the land and tend the animals and build something real. She had never had that, never had anything that was truly hers. Maybe, if they could prove her innocence, she could have a life like this someday. A place of her own, where no one could hurt her or threaten her or make her feel small. Maybe. The next few days fell into a strange routine. Nathan would leave early in the morning to go into Petaluma or to work at the mill, and Hannah would stay at the ranch, keeping herself busy with cooking and cleaning and tending to the animals. She found that she liked the work, liked the simple satisfaction of gathering eggs from the henhouse, or weeding the vegetable garden, or baking bread in the sturdy old stove. She also found that she liked being here, in this quiet place where the only sounds were the wind and the cattle and the birds. It was so different from the boarding house, where there had always been noise and people, and demands on her time and attention. Nathan would come back in the evenings, tired but always willing to tell her what he had learned. He was careful in his questions, not wanting to raise suspicion, but he was learning things. Kern owed money to half the businessmen in town, he told her on the third evening. sitting at the table while she served him the stew she had made. Had debts with the bank, with the saloon owner, with the man who runs the general store. But everyone says he was starting to pay them back, like he had come into some money recently. Where would he have gotten money? Hannah asked, sitting down across from him. That is what I am trying to figure out. Nathan ate a spoonful of stew and made an appreciative sound. This is good, by the way, better than anything I have ever made. Hannah felt a small flush of pleasure at the compliment. Thank you. Did you find out anything else? The paint horse. There is a man named Jack Sutton who has won. He is a gambler, spends most of his time at the saloon. I have been watching him, and he has been spending money like he has plenty of it. New boots, new hat, buying rounds for everyone. Do you think he is the one? Maybe. I am going to try to get into a card game with him tomorrow night, see if I can get him talking. Hannah felt a spike of fear. Is that safe? Nathan looked at her, and there was something warm in his eyes. Worried about me? Of course I am. You are risking everything to help me. If something happens to you because of me, I do not know what I would do. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. His palm was warm and calloused, rough from work, and the touch sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. Nothing is going to happen to me, he said quietly. I can take care of myself, Hannah. I have been doing it for a long time. I know, but still nothing. You are worth the risk. The sincerity in his voice made her throat tight. She looked down at their hands, his so much larger than hers, his fingers gentle despite the strength she knew they held. Why? She asked. Why am I worth it to you? You barely know me. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Maybe I want to know you. Maybe I have wanted to know you since the first time I saw you at the boarding house, carrying in firewood with flour on your apron and your hair falling out of its pins. Maybe I thought you were the prettiest thing I had ever seen, and maybe I hated the way Thomas Kern looked at you like you were something he could own. Hannah's breath caught. She looked up at him, at his honest face and his steady eyes, and saw the truth written there. You never said anything, she whispered. I did not think I had the right. You were dealing with enough without some cowboy bothering you. He smiled, a little rueful. And I figured you probably had men pestering you all the time. I did not want to be one more. You would not have been pestering me. The words came out before she could stop them, but she did not regret them. I noticed you too. You were always kind when you came to the boarding house, always respectful. You were different from the others. Nathan's hand tightened on hers. Hannah. I am not saying this because you are helping me, she said quickly. I am saying it because it is true. Because I have been thinking about it these past few days, about how lucky I was that you were the one who saw what really happened, about how lucky I am that you are the one helping me. I am the lucky one, Nathan said. His voice had gone low and rough. Getting to know you like this, seeing who you really are, you are strong, Hannah, stronger than you know, and brave. And yes, still the prettiest thing I have ever seen. She felt her face flush. No one had ever talked to her like this before, with such plain honesty and admiration. Men had wanted her before, but not like this. Not in a way that made her feel valued rather than objectified. Nathan, she said, and did not know what else to say. He stood up, still holding her hand, and gently pulled her to her feet. They stood facing each other in the small cabin, so close she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. I am going to do everything I can to prove you are innocent, he said. Not just because it is the right thing to do, but because I want you to have the life you deserve. I want you to be free. And then what? Hannah asked. Her heart was beating so fast she thought he must be able to hear it. And then, if you want, if you will have me, I would like to court you proper. Take you to church socials and town dances and all the things young people do when they are trying to figure out if they suit each other. He paused. Though I think I already know we suit each other just fine. Hannah felt tears prick her eyes again, but these were different from the ones she had cried a few nights ago. These were tears of hope, of happiness, of feeling seen and valued in a way she never had before. "I would like that," she said. "I would like that very much." Nathan smiled, and it transformed his face, making him look younger and lighter. Then, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her forehead. It was chaste and gentle, a promise rather than a demand. "We will get through this," he said against her skin. "Together." Hannah believed him. The next evening, Nathan came back from town looking troubled. Hannah knew immediately that something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked, meeting him at the door. He dismounted and tied Ranger to the post, then came inside and sank into a chair. "I played cards with Jack Sutton. And he is definitely spending more money than he should have. But he also has an alibi for the day Kern was killed. He was playing poker at the saloon all afternoon, and at least a dozen men saw him there." Hannah felt her hope deflate. "So it is not him." "It is not him," Nathan confirmed, "which means we are back where we started." She sat down across from him, trying to think. "What about the paint horse? Could someone else have borrowed it?" I asked around. "Sutton keeps his horse at the livery stable. The owner says no one took it out that day except Sutton himself, and that was in the evening, hours after Kern was killed. So the man you saw had a different paint horse." "Must have. There is at least one other paint in the area, but I have not been able to track down who owns it." Hannah rubbed her face, feeling the weight of failure settling on her shoulders. "Maybe we should just run. Maybe trying to prove my innocence is impossible." "Hey." Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. "Do not give up yet. We have only been at this a few days. These things take time." "I know, but what if we run out of time? What if they find me here?" "They will not find you. I have been careful. No one suspects anything." But Hannah could not shake the feeling of dread that was settling in her chest. She had been so hopeful that they would be able to find the real killer, but now that hope was fading. That night she could not sleep. She lay in Nathan's bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the night outside. An owl hooted somewhere nearby. The cattle lowed softly. The wind whispered through the trees. She must have finally dozed off, because the next thing she knew, someone was shaking her awake. "Hannah." It was Nathan, his voice urgent. "Hannah, wake up." She sat up, her heart already racing. "What is wrong?" "There are riders coming. 3 of them, maybe 4. They are still a ways off, but they are heading this way." Fear slammed into her. "The posse." "I do not know. Maybe, or maybe just travelers. Either way, you need to hide." He pulled her out of bed and led her outside, moving fast but quiet. The moon was full and bright, illuminating everything in silver light. She could hear the sound of horses now, distant but growing closer. Nathan led her to the barn and up a ladder to the hayloft. "Get under the hay, all the way in the back corner. Do not make a sound, no matter what happens." "Understand, Nathan, what if they are looking for me? What if they arrest you?" "They will not. I have not done anything wrong, just trust me." He kissed her quickly, fiercely. "Stay hidden." Then he was gone, climbing back down the ladder and disappearing into the night. Hannah burrowed into the hay, pulling it over herself until she was completely covered. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure anyone who came near would hear it. She heard Nathan walk back to the cabin, heard him call out a greeting as the riders approached. "Evening," an unfamiliar voice said. "Sorry to bother you so late." "No bother," Nathan replied, his voice calm and easy. "What can I do for you? We are part of the posse looking for Hannah Bishop. You heard about that situation." "I did. Terrible thing. You seen anyone unusual around here?" "Any sign of the woman?" "Can't say I have. Been pretty quiet out here." There was a pause. Hannah held her breath. "Mind if we look around?" the voice asked. "Help yourselves," Nathan said. "I have got nothing to hide." Hannah heard footsteps approaching the barn. She pressed herself deeper into the hay, trying to make herself as small as possible. The barn door opened. She could see light from a lantern filtering through the cracks in the hay. "Just a few cattle and some hay," someone said. "Nothing here. Check the loft," another voice ordered. Footsteps on the ladder. Hannah stopped breathing entirely. "Nothing up here either," the man called down. "Just hay." She heard him walking around, his boots thudding on the wooden floor just feet from where she was hidden. Then he stopped, right near her corner. She was certain he would find her, certain her life was about to end, but then he grunted and climbed back down the ladder. "Satisfied?" Nathan asked. "For now," the leader said. "But we will be keeping an eye on all the ranches and farms in the area. That woman has got to be somewhere." "Hope you find her," Nathan said. The riders left, their horses thundering away into the night. Hannah stayed hidden for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Finally, she heard Nathan climb the ladder. "They are gone," he said softly. "You can come out." Hannah emerged from the hay, shaking and covered in dust. Nathan helped her down from the loft, his hands steady and sure. "You did good," he said. "You stayed quiet. I was terrified, I know, but you are safe now." They went back to the cabin, but Hannah could not stop trembling. Nathan sat her down and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, then made her drink some water. "We cannot stay here," she said. "It is not safe anymore. They know to check the ranches now. They checked and did not find you. They will not come back. You do not know that." He crouched in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Hannah, listen to me. I am not going to let anything happen to you. I promised you that, and I meant it. But you cannot control everything. What if they come back with more men? What if someone sees me? Then we will deal with it. But running now would only make things worse. If I suddenly leave town, people will get suspicious. We have to stay here and keep working to find the real killer." Hannah knew he was right, but that did not make her feel any less afraid. The next few days were tense. Hannah barely left the cabin, and when she did, she was constantly looking over her shoulder. Nathan continued going into town, continued asking questions, but he was not making much progress. Then, almost a week after the posse had come to the ranch, Nathan came home with news. "I found something," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "I was talking to the bartender at the saloon, and he mentioned that a drifter came through town the day Kern was killed. Said the man was asking about people who had money, who might be good targets for a robbery." "Did he get a name?" "No, but he said the man had a paint horse and was wearing a black hat. That matches what I saw." Hannah felt hope surge again. "Did anyone see where he went?" The bartender said he headed south after leaving the saloon. "There is a mining camp about 20 miles south of here." "I am thinking maybe he went there." "That is dangerous country," Hannah said. "Miners do not take kindly to strangers. I know, but it is the best lead we have had." "When are you going?" "Tomorrow morning, first light." Hannah grabbed his arm. "Let me come with you." "No, it is too dangerous." "I cannot just sit here and wait, Nathan. I need to do something." He looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. "All right, but you stay close to me, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" "Understood." They left at dawn the next day, both riding Ranger since they did not want to risk being spotted with two horses. The ride south was rough, the land growing more rugged and wild the further they went. They saw few people, just a couple of freight wagons and one rider who passed them without a second glance. The mining camp was a ramshackle collection of tents and crude wooden buildings clustered around a stream. Men were working the water with pans and sluices, their faces tired and hopeful in equal measure. The camp had the look of a place where people came to seek their fortune and mostly found disappointment instead. Nathan and Hannah rode through slowly, drawing looks but no challenges. They found what passed for a saloon, Really just a tent with a plank bar and some barrels for chairs. The man tending bar was old and weathered, with shrewd eyes that took in everything. "Help you?" he asked. "Looking for information," Nathan said. "About a man who might have come through here about a week ago, riding a paint horse wearing a black hat." The bartender's eyes narrowed. "Why you want to know? He robbed and killed a man in Petaluma. We are trying to find him." "You law?" "No. Just trying to help someone who got blamed for something she did not do." The bartender looked at Hannah and something in his expression softened. "Girl got accused of that killing." "She did," Nathan said. "But she did not do it. We are trying to prove it." The old man was quiet for a moment, then jerked his head toward the back of the tent. "There is a man fits that description came through here about 5 days ago. Had a lot of money, was spending it free. Got drunk and started talking about how he had pulled off the perfect robbery, made it look like someone else did it." Hannah felt her whole body go cold and hot at the same time. "Where is he now?" "Left yesterday, heading toward San Francisco. Said something about catching a ship to South America." Nathan swore under his breath. "If he gets on that ship, we will never find him." "There is more," the bartender said. "He left something behind." He reached under the bar and pulled out a leather pouch. "Found this in one of the tents after he cleared out. Looks like he dropped it." Nathan opened the pouch. Inside were several gold coins and a folded piece of paper. He unfolded the paper and read it, his face going grim. "It is a receipt from Thomas Kern," he said, showing it to Hannah. "For money owed. It has the name on it, Curtis Walsh." "That is your proof right there," the bartender said. "Take it to the law, tell them what I told you. I will testify if you need me to." Nathan gripped the old man's hand. "Thank you, you have no idea what this means." "I got daughters," the bartender said, looking at Hannah. "I know how easy it is for a woman to get blamed for things she did not do. You go clear your name, girl." They left the mining camp at a gallop, racing back toward Petaluma with the evidence that would prove Hannah's innocence. The sun was high overhead when they finally reached town, and Nathan headed straight for the marshal's office. Marshal Hendricks was a stern man with gray hair and a weathered face. He looked up in surprise when Nathan and Hannah walked in. "Hannah Bishop," he said, reaching for his gun. "You are under arrest." "Wait," Nathan said, stepping between them. "She did not do it. We have proof." He laid out everything they had found, the bartender's testimony, the receipt, the description of Curtis Walsh. The marshal listened, his expression skeptical at first but gradually shifting to something more thoughtful. "This bartender at the mining camp, he will testify to all this?" Hendricks asked. "He will," Nathan confirmed. "I can take you there myself." The marshal looked at Hannah. "Why did you run?" "I was afraid," she said quietly. "I found Mr. Kern's body and I panicked. I knew how it would look, knew that people already did not like me because I had rejected him. I thought no one would believe me." Hendricks was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. "I will send a telegram to San Francisco, have them watch for this Curtis Walsh. If he tries to board a ship, they will arrest him. And I will ride out to that mining camp, get the bartender's statement." He looked at Hannah again. "But you are going to have to stay here until we verify all this." "You mean in jail?" Hannah asked, her stomach dropping. "I mean in town where I can keep an eye on you, but not in a cell." He looked at Nathan. "She can stay with you as long as you vouch for her and make sure she does not run." "I vouch for her," Nathan said immediately. "She is not going anywhere." 2 days later, a telegram came from San Francisco. Curtis Walsh had been arrested trying to board a ship to Chile. He had been carrying a large sum of money that matched the amount stolen from Thomas Kern's safe. When questioned, he had confessed to the robbery and murder, claiming it had been self-defense when Kern caught him breaking in. The story did not hold up well, especially when combined with the bartender's testimony about Walsh's drunken boasting. Hannah was officially cleared of all charges. The news spread through Petaluma quickly. Some people apologized to Hannah for assuming she was guilty. Others avoided her eyes, ashamed of how quick they had been to judge. Hannah did not care either way. She was just grateful to be free, to have her life back. But she found she did not want to go back to the life she had before. She did not want to work in another boarding house, did not want to go back to being alone and vulnerable. She wanted to stay with Nathan. It took her a week to work up the courage to tell him so. They were sitting outside his cabin one evening, watching the sun set over the hills. It had become her favorite time of day, these quiet moments when they could just be together. "Nathan," she said, "I have been thinking about what happens next." He turned to look at her, his expression open and attentive. "What have you been thinking?" "I do not want to go back to Petaluma. I do not want to go back to how things were before." "What do you want?" She took a deep breath. "I want to stay here with you if you will have me." Nathan's face broke into a smile, that wonderful smile that made him look years younger. "If I will have you, Hannah, I have been trying to figure out how to ask you to stay. I have been trying to work up the courage for days." "You have?" "Yes." He took her hands in his. "I know we have not known each other long. I know this whole situation has been strange and frightening and not at all how a proper courtship should go. But I meant what I said before. I want to court you, to marry you if you will have me. I want to build a life with you here." Hannah felt tears spill down her cheeks, but they were happy tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want that too." Nathan pulled her close and kissed her, really kissed her this time, not a chaste kiss on the forehead but a real kiss that made her heart race and her toes curl. It was her first real kiss and it was perfect. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I think I have loved you since the first time I saw you, even though I did not know it then." "I love you too," Hannah whispered back. "I love you so much." They were married a month later in the small church in Petaluma, with the bartender from the mining camp and the marshal as witnesses. Hannah wore a simple blue dress that Nathan had bought her, and Nathan wore his best shirt and a new hat. It was not a big wedding, but it was theirs, and that made it perfect. The years that followed were good ones. Nathan expanded the ranch, buying more cattle and building a larger barn. Hannah planted a bigger garden and learned to make cheese and butter to sell in town. They worked side by side, building something real and lasting. 2 years after they married, Hannah gave birth to a son. They named him Thomas, not after Thomas Kern but after Nathan's father, who had died when Nathan was young. Little Thomas had his father's dark eyes and his mother's smile, and he was the joy of both their lives. 3 years after that, they had twins, a boy and a girl. The boy they named Samuel, and the girl they named Grace. The cabin became too small for their growing family, so Nathan built an addition, then another, until it was a real house with separate bedrooms and a large kitchen where Hannah could cook for her family. The children grew up healthy and happy, running wild on the ranch and learning to ride horses almost before they could walk. Hannah taught them to read and write, using the few books they owned and newspapers from town. Nathan taught them to work the land, to care for the animals, to be honest and strong and kind. Sometimes when Hannah looked at her life, at the house she had helped build and the children she had raised and the man she loved, she could hardly believe it was real. She thought about that terrified girl running from Petaluma, thought about how close she had come to losing everything. And she thought about Nathan, who had stood between her and the law, who had believed in her when no one else would, who had kept his promise to help her no matter what. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch, watching their children play in the yard. Thomas was 10 now, the twins were 7, and they were as wild and joyful as the California hills around them. "I am thinking about how lucky I am," Hannah said, leaning against him. "How lucky I was that you were the one who saw what really happened that day." Nathan put his arm around her and pulled her close. "I am the lucky one. I got to spend my life with the woman I love. I got to watch our children grow. I got to build something real." "We built it together," Hannah said. "We did," he agreed. "And we are not done yet." She looked up at him, seeing the gray threading through his hair now, the lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun. He was 41 years old and she was 38, and they had lived a whole life together already. But he was right. They were not done yet. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I am thinking maybe we should add another room to the house," he said. "We have the money saved, and it would be nice to have a real parlor, a place to sit that is not the kitchen or the bedroom." Hannah smiled. "I think that sounds wonderful." They sat together as the sun set, watching their children play, planning their future. Hannah thought about how different her life was from what she had imagined when she was young. She had never dreamed she would have a husband who loved her, children who were healthy and happy, a home that was truly hers. She had never dreamed she would be this happy. That night, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Nathan and Hannah lay together in their room. The window was open, letting in the cool night air and the sound of crickets. "You ever think about that night?" Hannah asked. "The night we met?" "I think about it sometimes," Nathan said. "I think about how scared you were, how brave you were. I think about how close I came to not following you, to letting someone else find you. What made you follow me?" He was quiet for a moment. "I could not stand the thought of you facing that alone. I could not stand the thought of losing someone else I cared about to injustice." He turned to face her. "And I think some part of me already knew you were going to be important to me. I just did not know how much." Hannah reached out and touched his face, tracing the lines she knew so well. "You saved my life. You saved mine too," he said. "Before you, I was just existing, working, surviving, but not really living. You gave me a reason to live, to build something, to hope for the future." "We gave each other that," Hannah said. "We did." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the way they had almost every night for the past 12 years. The next morning, Hannah woke to the sound of the children arguing about whose turn it was to feed the chickens. She smiled and got out of bed, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the morning chill. Nathan was already up. She could hear him outside talking to the cattle. She went to the kitchen and started making breakfast, falling into the familiar rhythm of cooking for her family. Thomas came in first, his dark hair sticking up in every direction. "Mama, can I go fishing today, if you finish your chores first?" Hannah said. "I will, I promise." Samuel and Grace tumbled in next, still arguing about the chickens. Hannah settled the dispute by assigning them both to the task and reminding them that they needed to work together. Nathan came in smelling of fresh air and livestock, kissing Hannah on the cheek before sitting down at the table. "Morning, beautiful." "Morning," she said, serving him coffee and eggs. They ate breakfast together, the 5 of them, talking and laughing and planning their day. It was ordinary and wonderful, the kind of morning Hannah had once thought was only possible for other people. After breakfast, the children scattered to do their chores and Nathan prepared to ride out to check on the cattle in the far pasture. Hannah walked him to the door the way she did every morning. "Be safe," she said. "Always am," he replied, kissing her properly this time. "I love you." "I love you too." She watched him ride away, then turned back to her house, to the dishes that needed washing and the bread that needed baking and the 100 other small tasks that made up her life. And she was happy. Years continued to pass. Thomas grew into a strong young man who looked more like his father every day. He was serious and hardworking, with a gift for understanding animals. By the time he was 16, he was managing most of the ranch's cattle operations himself. Samuel was different, more interested in books and learning than in ranching. He wanted to be a teacher, he told his parents, wanted to help other children learn the way his mother had helped him. Nathan and Hannah supported him, even though it meant he would probably leave the ranch someday. Grace was wild and fearless, more comfortable on a horse than on her own 2 feet. She had her mother's determination and her father's calm competence, and she could outride and outwork most of the boys her age. She had no interest in leaving the ranch. She wanted to stay and help build it into something even bigger. When Hannah was 45, Nathan surprised her with a trip to San Francisco. They had never been to the city together, had barely left the ranch except for trips into Petaluma. The children were old enough to manage on their own for a few days, and Nathan wanted to show Hannah something of the world beyond their small corner of California. They stayed in a hotel that felt impossibly fancy, with real wallpaper and gas lamps and a restaurant on the first floor. They walked through the city streets, marveling at the crowds and the buildings and the sheer noise of it all. Hannah bought fabric for a new dress and books for Samuel. Nathan bought tools he had been wanting for years, but had never been able to justify purchasing. On their last night in the city, they went to a theater and saw a play. Hannah had never seen a play before, had never imagined such a thing. She sat next to Nathan in the darkened theater and watched the actors on stage, and she felt like she was seeing magic. "Thank you," she whispered to Nathan during the intermission. "Thank you for this. Thank you for saying yes all those years ago," he said back. "Thank you for choosing me, for building this life with me." "I would choose you again," Hannah said. "Every time in every life I would choose you." They went back to the ranch renewed and happy, ready to return to the work they loved. But the trip had shown them that there was more to the world than their small corner of it, and they made a promise to take more trips together, to show their children that the world was bigger than they knew. When Hannah was 50, she became a grandmother for the first time. Thomas had married a sweet girl from town named Elizabeth, and they had a daughter they named Hannah after her grandmother. Little Hannah had red hair like her mother and Nathan's dark eyes, and she was absolutely perfect. 2 years later, Samuel left for Sacramento to attend the new teachers' college there. It was hard to see him go, but Hannah and Nathan were proud of him for following his dreams. He wrote letters home every week, telling them about his classes and his new friends and the teaching he was starting to do at a small school in the city. Grace stayed on the ranch and became Nathan's right hand, managing the cattle and the land with a skill that impressed everyone who met her. She was 22 and showed no interest in marriage, too focused on the ranch to think about romance. Hannah worried sometimes that Grace was lonely, but her daughter insisted she was happy. When Hannah was 55, Nathan fell ill. It started as a cough that would not go away, then became something worse. The doctor from Petaluma came and looked grave, talking about weak lungs and too many years of hard work in all weather. Hannah nursed him through that winter, terrified that she was going to lose him. She sat by his bed and read to him and prayed more than she had since she was a child. She could not imagine her life without Nathan, could not imagine facing the world alone, but Nathan was strong and stubborn, and he pulled through. By spring, he was back on his feet, though he tired more easily than before. He joked that he was getting old, but Hannah saw the fear in his eyes sometimes, the awareness that they were both mortal and that their time together, however long it had been, would eventually end. "We have had a good life," he said to her one evening as they sat on the porch. He was 62 now, his hair completely gray, his hands gnarled from years of hard work, but his eyes were still the same, still steady and full of love when he looked at her. "We have," Hannah agreed. She was 55, her own hair streaked with gray, her hands marked with scars from cooking and working and living. A very good life. No regrets, none, she said honestly. You, not a single one. He took her hand. Except maybe that we will not have more time. I wish we could do it all over again, have another 50 years together. We have had nearly 30 years, Hannah said. That is more than many people get, and every one of those years has been a gift. You have been the gift, Nathan said. You have been my gift, Hannah Harper. She leaned against him, and they sat together in the fading light, grateful for what they had, for what they had built, for the love that had sustained them through everything. Nathan lived another 10 years, long enough to see Samuel come home with a wife of his own, long enough to see Grace finally fall in love with a rancher from the next county over, long enough to meet 4 more grandchildren and hold them in his arms. He died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 72 with Hannah beside him. She woke that morning to find him gone, and even though she had known this day would come eventually, the pain of it nearly broke her. But she did not break. She was strong, just like Nathan had always said she was. She grieved him deeply, missed him every day, but she kept living because that was what he would have wanted. She stayed on the ranch, which was now run by Thomas and Grace together. She spent her days with her grandchildren, teaching them to read and telling them stories about their grandfather. She tended her garden and cooked meals for her family, and watched the sun set over the hills where she and Nathan had built their life together. She lived to be 83 years old, long enough to see her great-grandchildren born, long enough to know that the legacy she and Nathan had built would continue long after she was gone. On her last day, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, she looked around at all the faces that carried pieces of her and Nathan in them, and she felt nothing but gratitude. "Tell me about Grandpa," little Hannah, now a young woman herself, asked. She was pregnant with her first child, a great-great-grandchild that Hannah would never meet. "Your grandfather," Hannah said, her voice weak but steady, "was the best man I ever knew. He saved my life, and then he taught me how to live it. He loved me every day we were together, and I loved him right back. We built this ranch together, this family together. Everything you see here, we made it together." "You must miss him," young Hannah said. "Every day," Hannah agreed, "but I will see him again soon. And when I do, I am going to tell him all about all of you, about how our family grew and flourished, about how the love we built kept going long after we were gone." That night, Hannah Bishop Harper closed her eyes and went to sleep. She dreamed of running through the California hills with a young cowboy on a bay horse, of a small cabin that became a home, of children and grandchildren and a life well lived. And somewhere in those dreams, Nathan was waiting for her, just like he had promised. Always. The end.